Hey folks, welcome to another edition of the Patreon Q&A here on the Golden Bolt. If you're not familiar, I have a Patreon like everyone else on this godforsaken platform, and for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to the official Golden Bolt Discord server, ad-free access to videos, and a bunch of other fun perks, including access to the Patreon Q&A thread, where every month I will answer every question you ask, as long as they're appropriate. So far, no one's asked an inappropriate question that I couldn't answer, so you could be the first if you want to do that. I have a bunch of questions here from the month of August, and there's some really good ones here, actually. Not that there aren't any other month, but I like a lot of these questions. First off, AEW, as always, has two questions, one meme one and one very good one. What's the opposite of the Golden Bolt? That would be the Silver Screw or the Bronzed Bronzer. Longtime fans will understand that, no one else will, and that's fine. He also asks, what are things about video game production you think people should be very aware of, even if the thought is very unpleasant to them? So for him, for example, he says it's regarding series that quote-unquote require having a new entry, whether those few games were fine without new entries, or whether said series had sales problems to begin with. I'll piggyback off of that one, because that's a really good answer in itself. And one thing I'll say is I think that, it's good to have series that don't necessarily need a new entry, like you said. I think it's okay for series to end. I think it's okay for series to change over time, because the people that making them change and the people that are playing them change. I've said it time and again with things like Ratchet & Clank and Sonic, and even with Twisted Metal, oddly enough. You will continue to change as you develop new games, as a studio or as a team or as a person. And as those priorities change and as your audience changes, you're going to have old fans that want the good shit, to quote my buddy Nico, for a fellow podcast member. I almost said former podcast member. Fellow podcast member over on the Crubcast, my podcast. You should check that out. But I will also jump onto that and say one thing about video game production that people should be aware of is that any problem you think you have with a game, they probably already knew before the game came out. Generally, there are some examples that are just, I didn't think of that, and that's totally, that's fair. One comes to mind is in Ghost of Tsushima, you couldn't have loadouts at first, and I think it was Kind of Funny, Greg Miller, or somebody on Kind of Funny, pointed that out to the game's creative director, and they said, we never thought of that. And then in the definitive edition that came to PS5 and also the PS4 update, they added loadouts. And I think that's a really cool example of that. But generally, if you think, how could they not see that this was a problem? They probably did. They just don't have the time or manpower to fix it. And that's just kind of a sad reality of developing anything, is that even in my dumb, stupid videos, if there's a part there that looks stupid or is under-edited, or I left a frame in that I cut to black and didn't have crossfade, usually it's, I know that's there, I just don't feel like re-rendering the entire video just for that. Know that a lot of the problems that you might have, the very developers probably have those problems too, and they're probably more annoyed about them than you are, but that's just kind of how anything creative goes, and anything in life goes. You're not going to get something truly perfect, and you're always going to have something you want to fix. Next up, we have Not a Minion, who asks, how did I become obsessed with Watto? So first off, I will say, I know that you're joking, but for those that may not know, I am not obsessed with Watto. He has now at this point been forced onto me. A lot of the jokes that we do over at the charity room are bits, especially the stuff that myself, Chris, Trav, the Crub crew, that we throw together is stuff that we just actually do in our spare time, whether we're playing Apex Legends or just fucking around on Discord. And a lot of those bits just come organically, and then if we include them on air on the charity room, they take on a whole new life that we never anticipated. So I was glad that Watto didn't make a huge appearance this year, but again, for those that maybe don't watch the charity room stuff, there's a Watto character. That's really it. We started talking about him at some point. I don't remember the exact origin of it. I just remember that at one point I was talking about... Shoot, I don't remember. I don't want to get it wrong, because it was a collaborative effort between myself, Chris Mykonos fan, Brody, also known as Rack Rocks, again, a bunch of the Crub people. We were all just shooting this shit, and I was talking about how I looked up Watto's deep lore and how he was just an asshole who he made a ton of money in the Toydarian Civil War and then left his family because he was like, they're going to take my money, huh? And we just started doing that, and then I just started taking that bit, and we developed it into a character who his wife hates him. He's a piece of shit. Like, he's kind of almost a sympathetic character until you realize how bad of a person he is. So he'll just be like, I come home, my wife hates me, I work in the junk shop, I go home, I play Ocarina of Time, I get to Great Deku Tree, I jerk off, go sleep. And it's just something stupid like that, that just kind of became. And the thing with the Krub crew, I'm gonna keep referencing Krub, so I apologize if you already know who Krub is or if you don't care, but we made a podcast because people liked hearing us do this dumb shit. And a lot of the stuff that we do as the Krub crew ends up just being us trying to pop each other and trying to get a laugh out of one another, so we'll just keep going. We'll just keep adding new wrinkles to it. Whether it's Watto or Duke Nukem we were doing for a little while, or Bernie Sanders, for example, or Doofenshmirtz, a bunch of other characters that we'll just do just to make each other laugh, and then it takes off and has a whole new life of its own. So that's the story of the Watto origin. Hopefully I never see him again. Speaking of, the Dan the Man Show, a great YouTube channel that you should check out especially if you're interested in the cartoon space. He asked, will we ever see a sequel to the Nintendo Switch Online video? No, that was a soft pilot idea for if I was going to continue the Plus One stuff. I did a video that is, I think I consider it like a proper episode of a season of the Golden Bolt. Because it's like an hour long, and I reviewed every NES game on Switch Online when the service first dropped. And I really liked the idea, but I don't ever intend to go back to that. I know that our pals over at Good Vibes Gaming are doing a game club with the Switch Online, and I know that Derek had asked me last month if I wanted to join in on that one, and I said yes, but last month I was very busy, as I've mentioned time and again, with the move and the charity room and all, videos and sponsor deadlines and all that stuff, so I had to decline. But I'm sure I will be talking about a Switch Online game there sooner than later, most likely. Even also echoed that question, but he had another question as well, which was, I've been playing the original Pikmin as of late, and I really enjoy how the game essentially lets you restart any day without penalty, although I know people who play it without doing that, as they think it seems save scummy or exploitative to them. But that's how the game was designed, so it got me even thinking, if a game is integrally designed in such a way to allow something like that, is it fair to consider such aspects in those terms, and can you think of another game with a similar mechanic that could be viewed that way? I have a good one, actually. So to summarize that question, do I think that built-in almost accessibility features like that, do I think that those should be fair to consider save scummy, almost, or lesser? Essentially, should we gatekeep is kind of the moral of the question, and the answer is no. But a good example is Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, a game that I've been playing a lot of, not in the last few weeks, but before that, because I got a Steam Deck, and the folks at Yacht Club actually sent me a code for the Steam version, which I was pretty grateful for. I already bought it back when it came out on Switch, but I don't like playing my Switch anymore because of Joy-Con drift, and no matter how many times I try to send those things in, doesn't matter. So when it came to Steam Deck, they added a big update, and the moral of the story with Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon is it's a pseudo roguelite/roguelike puzzle game in the vein of like a Super Puzzle Fighter, almost, but with Shovel Knight elements. And the way the game is supposed to work at its base is that if you die, your run ends. But you can modify your health, your attack damage, the movement speed of the board. You can make it so that if you die, you don't in fact lose. It just you respawn, and they add a bunch more stuff to the map so that it's harder then, and so that you only get a game over if your grid fills up all the way. And I play that way. I play with deaths on, because screw that. I don't have time for that. I'm not a real roguelike gamer, and I don't care. So I think anything like that, especially in games like roguelikes with modifiers, I think roguelikes rather should have modifiers like that, because it makes those games more accessible and gives people the option to play it their way rather than solely on the game's terms of if you die, deal with it, and that's it. And I don't know, I think that especially with a genre as saturated as roguelikes, for that example, and not that Pikmin is a roguelike, but kind of in some sense, if you think about it, a part of it, with the style there, there's parallels. And I think, I don't know. I think that it's just a good thing to have more people able to play a game, because that means that they'll make more, or that they'll, make more than, minimum wage making a game. And I think that's a good thing. Final question here is actually related to the video I put out on the main channel yesterday at the time of publish, today at the time of recording. Tony Grizz had asked, with how poorly Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart sold on PC, do I think there's any hope of future games ending up on the PC? Also, do I think the PC version has a modding future? As far as modding goes, I don't, and I never did. Not because of the size of the Ratchet & Clank fanbase or anything, it's just that Spider-Man has a much larger fanbase, and most of the mods for Spider-Man PC are mods that actually already existed on PS4, if you had a modded PS4, and they're mostly skin swaps. So I don't think that I don't think that there's really a world where we see a significant modding community for Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. The only thing I want is for them to add that modifier from the one arena challenge where you just randomly cycle between guns. Make that the whole game. I just want to play a whole New Game Plus run where my guns swap out, every when I run out of ammo or every few kills or whatever. I think that'd be cool. As far as the first part, do I think there's hope of future games ending up on the PC? Yeah, no, I don't think they're going to stop, because they put Sackboy on PC. And Sackboy is the worst selling of any of the PlayStation games that came to PC, in part because why did they make that $60 when it's a 4-player co-op game? Or, I mean, you can play it alone, but you really shouldn't. Especially when there's not crossplay for that game. I think that any future Ratchet & Clank game will come to PC a few years later. And I mentioned a lot of this in that video, so I'm not going to tread too much on the same waters that I did there. But, I think it'll happen. I think we'll see more Ratchet games. I don't know whether we'll see, an actual collection or older games coming to the PC or Steam or even PS5. I hope so, but I wouldn't anticipate it. And on the front of the game's sales, I don't think that it necessarily performed poorly. It did relative to some of the other games, but if you look at, and I said this in the video as well from again, yesterday at the time of publish here, a lot of the games that came to PC from the PlayStation family in the last few years have been games that have been timed in such a way that they came to PC as promotional material for a future game. So I think that Rift Apart's in a weird space because it's a franchise that, the game got a lot of praise when it first came out on PS5, obviously, but there's not another Ratchet & Clank game coming, and even it's a weird thing to do, to have the one, like, this is the PS5's game that it then comes to PC, because then it's like, well, why do I get a PS5? Unless there's another Ratchet & Clank game that comes, is announced in the same span that says, hey, don't worry, there's an even better one coming that's only on PS5. Just a weird time to release the game, really, especially after The Last of Us's PC port ended up being so wonky, to say the least, which, from what we understood, was a Naughty Dog thing. I know they get a lot of flack from people in the general community sometimes, but that one's earned. I don't know why they chose to work so heavily on a PC game themselves and insist upon it, as was alleged, when they had a port team ready to do all the work that just didn't really do any of the work. So it's kind of weird. I'll also add in, this is me recording in post because I realized there was one thing I forgot I wanted to say about this. It's also a weird game to put on PC to some extent anyway, because it's the first Ratchet that's come to PC. It's a game that's, only going to be 10 to 12 hours for most players, which is a good length for a Ratchet & Clank game. Still the longest one if you look at pure game time. But it's not Horizon, where the game's 40 to 50 hours. It's not The Last of Us, where the game's one of the most acclaimed games ever. It's not God of War, where, actually also same, one of the most acclaimed games ever. Ghost of Tsushima will do well when that comes to PC inevitably, but Ratchet is a unique case because, hell, even Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man for one, but Sunset Overdrive did well on PC because it's an open-worldy checklist kind of game that has a lot of appeal. A family-friendly, mostly linear experience in a platformer shooter like Ratchet isn't really something that makes a ton of sense to put on PC and expect to do well at $60. I don't know, the price point just didn't make sense to me. So that's just me. I'm sure it will do pretty well in the grand scheme of things. once it starts dropping in price, because a lot of the PlayStation PC games, I've seen them go as low as 20 frequently. I've seen Horizon go down, I think, to like 10 even on PC, and once you hit that price point where it's a no-brainer, that's where a Ratchet & Clank port lives and dies, I think. And so I wouldn't worry too much about it launching at $60 in the middle of summer on PC 2 years after the game came out. It's just weird. I did have one other question that I realized I deleted from my little doc here, which was from Tabriz, and it's actually related to Tony's question just a moment ago. Would I say the PS5 is worth getting despite not having that many exclusives, and while most exclusives are now coming to PC? I think that depends on your priority set, because to play the PS5 games on PC in a way that I would personally say is on a similar level, you're paying a lot more for a PC that can do that. Obviously, if you just want to play them at all, that's one thing, but you're not going to be able to build a $500 PC that runs games from the PS5 nearly as well as the system itself does. And that's always been the value proposition of any console, is that you can put stuff in and it will work. And you know that for the cost that you are paying, the games will run at close to what their ideal peak is, or what their ideal target is, rather, not peak. So I think that depends. Money's obviously a little bit tighter for a lot of people this year, so I understand people not wanting to get a PS5 or an Xbox or even a Switch at this point, although the Switch is only like $200, so I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I think I don't want to punt on the question, but I think that there's good reason to get the PS5 because, yeah, you can wait 2 years and play Spider-Man 2 years later on PC, but I don't know. I like being able to put games in and play them, and I say that as someone who has a high-end PC and a Steam Deck and all those sorts of things where I've moved much more heavily to PC in recent years because of those things, because games do run better on PC at the highest end. But that's only because I put like $2,000 into the thing, So is it worth it? It depends on what you're going to use the PC for. Mine is also for work. So yeah, it was obviously worth it because I kind of had to do that because editing on a shitty computer is not fun. Editing on a good computer is not fun either. So yeah. So I will leave you with that. If you have any questions you would like to ask for a future Patreon Q&A video like this, you can ask them below, even if you're not a patron. I'll probably write a shorter text-based answer to those, but if you want to hear them in more elaborate video form like this, go to patreon.com/thegoldenbolt and donate as little as $1 a month. You get ad-free access to videos and a bunch of other stuff. If you donate $5 a month and join the Silver Bolt tier, you get early access to most videos that are also ad-free, and you get access to the full Patreon feed where you get to see what I'm working on next and what's coming up, and a bunch of other stuff like that. I'm very excited for the next few months of content to end out 2023. This was the first week that I finally felt like I was in my groove work-wise. I'm not like quite where I want to be just yet, but I feel like now that everything is sorted and I'm good, I'm really, really excited to probably for the first time ever have a proper, consistent workflow with the channel. And hopefully that means bigger and better things as we close out the rest of the year. So that's everything. As always, until next time, stay golden.